So ladies and gentlemen, welcome to your Next Empire Masterclass show. It's the next in our educational series, which is outstanding. My name is Paul Jantz, and thanks for joining us. We're here thanks to Professional Partners Education, which we love, and our fantastic supporters of Hall Chadwick, Profit Master, Global Outsourcing, iKeep, and Lloyd's Auctioneers. Now, I've been on the road, so we've done a couple of little lunches last week in Melbourne, this week in Brisbane. So to all of you guys that have joined us for our, let's call it our face-to-face lunches, it's been awesome to touch base with people again and just travel again. And mind you, it was about 6 degrees when I left Melbourne yesterday, so I was glad to get up to Brisbane, that's for sure. Massive audience again today, like we said. What I love about this is that, and the topic we're going to talk about is something that I believe that a lot of firms, I've been talking to a lot of firms over the last few weeks, and they've all got little bits of what they want to change, what they want to ask, whether it's a brand, whether it's a rename, whether it's a logo change. Funnily enough, I saw on the news this morning for those, maybe the AFL supporters, and if you support Essendon, I did see that the Essendon Football Club are looking to rebrand themselves at the moment as well. So interesting things that, maybe the traditionalists may not like, but maybe the new audience will. But I think for the Bombers, being a Carlton supporter, I don't really care what they do, to be honest. That's another matter though. Now, if you're joining us for the first time, welcome to Professional Partners Education. This content platform was built for you guys, our accounting community. So if you've missed anything over the last, we've been doing this for about 18 months now. You've got these live masterclasses as well as our technical shows that we do on every second Tuesday. It's our lunch and learn workshop. So if you've missed anything, please go to our YouTube channel, type up Google, go into YouTube, type up Professional Partners Education, and you'll see PPE TV Plus pop up, and you'll see all of the content there, which includes all my podcasts as well. So everything's there for you guys. It's free of charge. So subscribe, and please make sure you get constant updates of everything that comes through. Today's topic, power of branding. And today's masterclass, we're going to actually take a really close, deep dive at branding and marketing. Now, again, given my background, and for people that know me or don't know me, I've been in the industry for about 24 years in more of a coaching, training capacity, coaching a lot of different accounting firms throughout Australia as well as overseas as well. But one of the key things that a lot of firms, we've done a lot of work in this space, and this is why it's great to have my guest Emma with me, because things around marketing and branding, to be fair, and I mean no disrespect to all of you guys that are online, but it's probably not your strongest suite. Okay, so your minds are more technical driven than marketing driven. So, but at the end of the day, we're all here to grow our businesses. I haven't met too many businesses that don't want to grow. And in order to do that, in order to pick up new clients or referrals or whatever you want to do, and we're going to go into a bit of detail about all of that, you need to make sure that you're doing things beyond just hoping the phone is going to ring. Okay, so we're going to go into a bit of detail about that. So strap yourselves in for the next hour or so. Now, I'll mention it quickly, and for those of you that have seen my teasers as well, you would have seen that my special guest today is Emma Reeves. Emma, welcome. How are you?
Hi, Paul. Thank you for having me.
It is my absolute pleasure. So it's great to have you here to share all of your thoughts, wisdom, knowledge. I know you work with a number of accounting firms throughout Australia as well, but I'll let you maybe go into a little bit about yourself, share a little bit about you and the Business Accelerate Marketing.
Sure. Well, Accelerate Marketing just turned 3 on the weekend. So thank you very much. We started what was at the time kind of mid-COVID, but now because it went on for so long, it was really the start of COVID. We started because there was a need in the market, particularly for professional services and accounting firms, to get that level of strategy and advice that they provide their clients. So we're essentially the CMO to CFOs. We started the business to provide that strategy and the structure for the accounting firms. And then it evolved into being the full service digital agency that we are, because the strategy would be created, and then there would be a need for obviously executing that strategy across social media, their website, email marketing, supporting with events, supporting with other collateral and design requirements that they had. So we were born 3 years ago. Prior to that, I had 10 years in marketing I worked for a comparison website called Rate City. So competitors to them are Finder and CanStar. And then I moved and actually worked for OnDeck, who are a fintech. And we were partnered with MYB at the time. And so my role really there was to oversee the whole partnership channel and to sell in that product to MYB customers. That's where I worked with a lot of bookkeepers and accounting firms, because it was their job to talk about OnDeck loans and MYB loans specifically to their clientele.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And look, what you guys listening to this today are going to have is, one of the things when I started talking to Emma, love the way the brain works and the passion she has for this space as well. So I'm really looking forward to as we get into this, Emma. Let's start with a little bit about your company. You've called it Accelerate Marketing. I can see your logo behind you there, which is, again, we're here to talk about branding. So for all of you listening to this as well and watching this as well, because there's going to be a few people maybe on replay, I think it's really important to think about how you've even positioned yourself with your logo behind you there. And tell us why you branded your company Accelerate Marketing.
Yeah, sure. So Accelerate Marketing came from two parts. One about excel and to do things well. So I will admit I am a perfectionist and I like to, do things to a really great quality and to be proud of what we deliver from a marketing standpoint, and then, just other things personally in life as well. You want to do things well and you want to excel. And then Accelerate, people that know me personally know that I like to run at a certain pace. And so I wanted to create a business which was really clearly defining our proposition to customers, that we want to deliver effective and efficient marketing strategies well, and that we're about doing it within a period of time that gets those companies results. So Accelerate Marketing was born. In terms of our logo, you can see the E's on a slight slant to show acceleration. And so that's kind of how the actual brand name and a little bit about our identity was created. And then we've evolved that over time and basically extended off that into some more values and our purpose.
Yeah, brilliant. And did that take you a fair while to work through that? Because you mentioned quite a few things in there, because I know there's a few firms that I've spoken to that are thinking about rebranding, and I suppose we can always go with Jantz Accounting as an example. But I know there's been a few firms now that are changing that to take away from their name, or Jantz and Partners, or that's always been an easy little brand for accounting firms. But they're now moving towards in line with, let's call it, their purpose that you mentioned. Is that something that you worked through? Yeah,
definitely. And actually, we're helping a client at the moment work through their rebranding process just for that reason, is that it's using their last name as their brand name, and they want to bring on more partners long term, and so they want to move away from having that. For us, Accelerate Marketing, I always wanted to create it as a company. I always want it to be bigger than myself. So we can probably delve into a little bit around personal branding and then corporate branding and how the two work together. So that's why I created Accelerate Marketing as a company, and I created it not associated essentially to me or my name. But then I've got, friends that have businesses and that works really well for them. So it comes down to your identity and how you want to be positioned in the market. And for accounting firms, like you've said, sometimes that evolution happens, whereas when they've created the business using their last name, that creates a sense of, this real personal community and, that authenticity and credibility with the brand, just because it's based upon that person early on. But then as they evolve and they want to work with larger scale clients, then having a company which is seen as being a bigger size is the direction they want to go in. And therefore a rebrand needs to occur. So there's not always one right answer. And then sometimes it can change midway through, and that's okay. Yeah,
and I think in line with that as well, I think being careful, I suppose, is when you've had, let's say, we all have to start somewhere. Everyone needs to start somewhere. And then you grow and you get a little bit larger. And I think it's also important that the clients that have been with you at the start don't see you as getting too big, and then they go, well, too big can also mean your service levels drop off. So there's a balance there that we need to find, and we might even touch on that later on as we get into things like increasing customer value and what does that mean. And so I think we can touch on that as we get into this. But it's sort of how do you see that?
Yeah, look, it comes up a lot in conversations with our clients. We are really tactical about how do we talk about them working with other businesses without alienating or disassociating with their current customers.
Yep.
So I think we will go into it. It's about that storytelling. And so all the content that you put out, so from your branding and you're having your consistency, you want to have visibility of your brand and consistency of your brand and your logos and your fonts and colors, and that tells a story and that tone of voice is consistent. But then what is the story that you're telling, and how do you use content effectively across different channels to tell that in a way that tells the story you want to tell? So, you may want to talk about, you are now offering R&D government grants, as a service for your business, or you're moving more into the advisory space, or that you're upgrading your software and your systems, not to be a bigger client base, but to add more value to your clients. So there's subtleness in some of those communications that you send out to your clients that can accurately tell the picture and the story that you want to tell. So I think it's always nice to talk about the wins. I think it's nice to talk about when you're working with new clients. So just, and
especially if you get early wins with new clients, that's also a good opportunity to ask for a referral.
Yes,
or nowadays, and I think that's the funny part is, and we're going to go into some of the basics around marketing, and I think, like, now I'm giving away a little bit too much grey hair, I suppose, but I started when I was a 19-year-old in the print media, and you think about how that has evolved to maybe where we maybe used to market, and now today, and you mentioned it right at the start in your opening, talking about digital and how that has all changed. And now with, I don't know, you don't have to do too much to search for something, and then through your social feeds, the next thing that pops up is what you've just been searching for. So, sorry, you go.
Well, it's a good point, and I think there's a balance these days. Direct mail is not dead, and for a lot of industries, it is still a large percentage of sales for their business. And on deck, actually, in particular, 60% of the business is probably from direct mail. Right. But that was in correlation with running in-product advertising to MYB customers, online advertising and product ads, and then also running a lot of events. So it was the insight conferences. Yes. So it's having those multiple touch points. We know that a customer needs to see your brand at least 7 times to have a higher likelihood of converting, because you're trying to nurture them through that buyer journey, and you're trying to get them to be aware of your brand and then that consideration set, and then obviously purchase, post-purchase, and be an advocate for your brand. Yeah. So it is important to show up in the channels, and sometimes doing something a little bit differently. My golden rule with content and marketing and putting out a message is only if it's going to be of value. So if you're going to communicate something that's, an update that's happening in the industry or something that's happening within your business, if it's going to be of value to them, then show up on the channel that they're going to most resonate with. Yes. So you're not going to send them a letter with a link to this video, perhaps. Like, if you're going to send a letter, you send the letter, you give the message in a letter. Yes. You're not going to put a 20-minute video on Instagram. So there's this balance. We've actually got a cheat sheet we can probably send around afterwards.
That is really good, actually. You can drop that into the link.
I hadn't told you about that, but we do have something to help our clients and different firms that want to look at the content respective to the channel. And there is a bit of a kind of golden rule for each of the channels. But ultimately, be where your customers are going to be, but only be there and if you're providing a valuable message.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. Look, we've got a lot to get through, so yes. Hopefully I'm not going off track, but this is what I do. Because I got asked the question today. So I was working with a firm here in Brizzy, and the comment was, we need to, it was a comment. We need to be on, I've just gone blank, TikTok.
TikTok, right.
We need to be on TikTok. And I said, okay, so why do you think you need to be on TikTok? Oh, well, that's where all the young people are. I said, okay. I said, so what's our audience? Yeah. Is our audience young people, or our audience 35 to 40 plus? And they've gone, oh, no, definitely 35 to 40 plus. I've gone, well, you just told me we need to be on TikTok. Now, personally, I'm not on TikTok. My 13-year-old son, maybe. But it's an interesting one, isn't it? So exactly what you said before there, you've got to be, if you know your audience, and we're going to talk about into marketing plans and strategy, and we'll give people some tips on all these sorts of things. But if you need to go to where your audience is, and if you're chasing that 35-year-old, 40-year-old professional, whatever it may be, whatever business they're in, or if it's a self-managed super fund client as a really good example, well, they're probably not going to be 25-year-olds. So he's going to be a different market to go to where they are. Is that a fair comment?
Yes, definitely. And I'll probably answer that on a couple of different aspects. One would be definitely show up where your customers are. And so doing that research around your target audience, so looking at your current client base and then looking at what the prospective client base and your market is and where you want to be. Definitely first and foremost, target audience. And then that off the back of that, you can determine what channels and platforms you need to use. We actually had a business that came to us and said, we need help with our LinkedIn because we haven't posted for 3 years and we lost a prospective client because they thought we were closed. So would they have done that if they didn't even have a LinkedIn page? So there's this balance of, okay, if you're going to do something, do it well or don't do it at all. Basically, is also our advice. So if you're going to have LinkedIn, post consistently, post valuable content and build your audience and create that community within that platform. Or, that some firms spread themselves too thin. So they're across LinkedIn, they're across Facebook, across Instagram, they think that they need to do TikTok. If you're going to do something well, to do that. And also if you have the, opportunity to leverage your content across multiple platforms. So you might want to use it on TikTok and then repurpose it across other platforms, depending if that's what your audience is. So we talk about with our clients, being able to create basically what the idea is. So let's just say, for example, there's a new customer that's been onboarded. Okay, do we want to do a post about that customer? Do we want to wait till they have a visit with that customer and talk about the client visit and the team members that went? Do we want to talk about the wins and do we want to, maybe do it in 3 months' time when they've actually gotten into that business and made some headway and kick some goals? What is the message that we want to get out? What is the type of content we want to deliver? Is it a post? Is it a blog? Is it going in and doing a video customer testimonial? So there's this balance and dynamic between what you're trying to achieve, the content you need to create, and then what channel you put it on.
Yes.
So yeah, we're basically trying to be, magicians to create the magic, and we need to have the right formula because if putting something out and it's of subpar, value, it's going to be a detriment to your brand. And it works against what you're trying to achieve. Yeah,
I'll sort of add in. I know you're the expert, but I'll add a few things in, and to all of everyone watching right now, sort of one of the critical things that when we created the Professional Partners Education brand, because that's a separate brand to our friends at Hall Chadwick, so it's the education division. So again, new logo, new branding. It was all about how we can create value in the brand and getting things out there. But I think, again, I wanted to work smarter than harder as well. So if you're doing things like this with live content, yes, I've got a wonderful guest, but it's over Zoom, doesn't cost you a lot. Then you can take the MP4 file, you convert that to a podcast. You can then put that on YouTube. YouTube's free. There's a lot of things that you can use in this digital space to then get out messages to your clients. Now if you go to PPTV Plus, there's so much content on there, it's not funny. Now, is that of value? I'd like to believe so. So there's things that you guys as accounting firms can start doing as well, depending on the target audience you're trying to market to.
Yeah. And I'd say even a tip there for us is definitely, to your point, if you've got a long form piece of content, so whether that's a really long case study or blog article, you can cut it up and repurpose that multiple times on social media and create different snippets from that. Same as this, a long form video, you can cut up different sections and post that. And the value is in both the content, you being really precise around what that message is for that particular post, but also just the fact of posting and just showing up. We actually had one of our clients, I won't name names, they took a long time to approve the content back in May. And so for 3 weeks, we didn't have a post out because they were really busy and they didn't get a chance to approve the social media. And so they actually had a business come to them and they said, oh, we've been seeing everything that you're doing. We love, the content you're putting out. We just see that, you're really active. what's happened? Are you okay? We haven't seen anything for 3 weeks. And so not only they're noticing when they post, and they're probably not necessarily reading all of it, but now they're noticing when they're not posting and they're not showing up. And so it's that consistency, which we'll talk to with your brand. And not always, when you post across social media, your logo is already there, your brand name's already there. So don't put your logo on all your posts. But even just posting consistently and having this visibility across multiple channels keeps you basically always on and always front of mind at the time that someone's ready to purchase, or someone's then reminded of, they've gone through a problem that day and they're reminded to talk to that business. That consistency sometimes is even more powerful than the message you're trying to tell them.
True. So let's get into this. I know it's 12:22, so let's maybe start with some of the basics.
Sure.
Let's go back to some of the reasons why a company would want to market their services. Let's start with that, and then we can flow into the marketing plan, the importance of the marketing plan, and we'll come back to, let's say, brand consistency, which you just spoke about then. So let's some of the basics. Why are companies wanting to market services?
Well, the businesses that come to us, they all pretty much have a common theme. They're all very successful, and they have grown over the last 2 years or 5 years or 10 years without the need of marketing. And that's a great win for that business. Then normally what it is there's something that's, happened within their business that they don't like. So their brand has evolved. And I actually had one accounting firm come to me 2.5 years ago and said, our website is terrible. It is stock standard. It doesn't represent who we are. It's shit, basically is what they said. Please fix. The first thing that we did for them was rewrite the content of the website. And what that involved was probably, a couple of hours sitting down with the director of that business and really nutting out what their values, what is their vision, what is their point of difference, what are their services, what are the clients that they want to work with. And we rewrote the content on the website. And then since then, we've helped support them with different events. We've helped them with different, communications and email, upgrading some of their, their brochures and their customer onboarding documents. And so we make sure in every communication that we do, we're elevating their brand, because the more visible they are, the better the reach of their brand, but the better and stronger the message is around what they do and who they are and what their team represents. So that's the reason they come to us. Like, we've got to this point and we don't feel like we can grow at the same rate we have been without actually implementing proper marketing. Yep. And our website is painful to look at. Please help. So that's sometimes how the conversation starts.
Yeah. Do you think the importance of, let's call it a tagline? Obviously Nike's been outstanding with "Just Do It." Do you believe that is important for a lot of businesses?
I think it is from a recognition standpoint, because we don't always have our logo and everything. And so sometimes we use Accelerate Marketing, sometimes we'll use EM, sometimes we'll just use the colors, or sometimes it'll be me. So you're giving people the opportunity to recognize your brand from a multitude of different ways.
Yeah.
Your tagline is one. So if someone says "Just Do It," you think Nike. If you see the tick, you think Nike. If you see the word, you see Nike. If you see great joggers, you think Nike. So it's around this recognition, which then helps build trust for your brand, which then encourages, that purchase and advocacy of your brand.
Yeah. Okay, good. So there's a few things in there that people can start to actually call it list down. If you're taking notes, whatever it may be, start to list down. So let's talk about the importance of a marketing plan. And I suppose we're going to get to some fundamentals as well, which is great as we enter the new financial year. Ridiculous to think we're 10 days away. And to all you guys that are joining us, thank you, because we know you're busy. It's this time of the year is a very busy time of the year as well with tax planning. So we certainly appreciate you being here. Let's talk about the importance of having a plan from your point of view.
Yeah, look, definitely. Like I said, that's where we start with all our customers. The first thing that we do is write a marketing strategy for them. What that enables us to do is to clearly identify their target audience, to clearly identify, who they are, what they do, vision, mission, values. But deeper than that, what is the difference of their team? We know that accounting firms are struggling to hire and often, retain staff. And so it's a really important aspect to cover off. And we've actually created probably 3 or 4 careers pages for our accounting clients, auditing clients, financial services clients, because we want to attract people to their brand and their business, not so much from a customer standpoint, because they're doing really well on that side of things.
Yep.
And their referrals are coming through, but it's making sure they have the resources there to support those clients and to retain, their employees, because they'll also be advocates of the brand.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we get into that when it comes to the plan, and often they will then uncover, oh, we have all these things we offer for our clients, for our staff. So we have, they can take different days off. If it's not particular, religious holiday that they support, they get the option to take different days. Or we have a share scheme, or we offer flexible work, or we bring in-house massagers in. And so all these things around the brand are important to talk about what you do internally to support your staff. Maybe something you do in the community. Maybe you sponsor some local footy teams, or maybe there's a charity organization you're closely aligned with. So this is all part of your marketing and your story, and basically your DNA, your brand DNA of who you are and what you do.
Yep.
And then what it helps us to do is to build a schedule of content, and we rotate that with different themes. So we look at behind the scenes content of what you're doing in your business. We look at customer content. We look at what's happening and important in the industry that's important to communicate to your clients, so that they know they can obviously come to you for those type of updates. And when Xero made some changes to the report, okay, do they need to talk to you about that? Like, what's the action there? So we look at different content themes in that content schedule, and then tactically around some different initiatives. When's your next birthday? Are we running any client events? Are you co-hosting any other, breakfast? Are you attending XeroCon? What are the things that you're doing tactically to help elevate and grow your brand and your business over the next 12 months?
Yeah, and I think there's a question from Brett I'm going to come to in a second. But you spoke about now I've gone blank. I was going to go one way and then I went the other way. This is how my little brain works. We've done a bit of work on this is going back a few years ago, on the audience that you mentioned before as well. And I think it's really important, because Brett's asked the question before, what's between a marketing strategy and a marketing plan, which I'll have you answer in a second.
Yep.
Although when you're chasing a particular client, and I know we did this for a firm in Melbourne in particular, and they decided that where they wanted to pick up most of their new work, because where they thought that, and it was true, the profit margins were in self-managed super funds. So they wanted to chase that market. Then they decided they wanted to look at, they identified a certain earning group. Then it came back down to, so I'm just getting into a little bit of the meat here to give you guys online a bit of an idea of the way we did, or the way we identified this. Then it got down to, so what's the type of profession that's going to be earning that sort of money? And then we got down to, it's that, call it the physio, chiro, in that sort of sector where they're running their own business, but they're also on the tools, but we know they're earning good fees. Then we got into dentists. So there was a lot of different targets that this particular firm went after and was quite successful at it. Now they've actually just continued to target, funnily enough, dental practices, because then they've got involved in the buying and the selling, the due diligence involved. And you can, all you guys online can actually imagine that the fees are involved in that as well. So very, very clever. Then suddenly they're talking at dental events. Okay, so these are the sorts of things, again, that can flow into your marketing plan once you've identified that. But I'll go to that question, Emma. Can you just answer the question from Brett there? Sorry,
yeah,
mate.
sure. Thanks, Brett.
To get to that, the difference between a marketing strategy and a marketing plan.
Difference between marketing strategy and a marketing plan. So I would say and look, all marketers will have a slightly different opinion on this, but for me and the business that we have, a marketing strategy is really getting into the nuts and bolts around your business and what are the objectives of your business and long-term growth plans, and what is the strategy to get you there. So is it, I know you spoke with someone recently, 3 mil turnover, is it 5 mil turnover? He had that objective around how quickly he wanted to grow his firm. And then the strategy underpins how to get there. So what is the audience, or, how big does your team need to be? So looking at, capacity and client, and looking at maybe service delivery, or maybe looking at the offerings. So the marketing strategy encompasses your target audience, really the type of activities that you need to do to be front of mind within that space. And we'll work with clients before their marketing strategy is around customer retention, or it's around acquisition, or it's around upsell, cross-sell, or it's a combination of all of those. But your strategy is really around how are you going to grow your business in alignment with your overall business plan, and what are the different channels and activities that you need to do to get your business there. And then your plan is the tactical plan of how is that executed, and who are the the main points of contact and the deliverables across that. So are you working with an agency and partnering with an agency to be able to deliver that? And there is a bit of a debate of whether that should be in-house or outsourced. We're obviously an advocate of it being outsourced, because we feel like we provide additional value to our clients. We have a full breadth of skill and resources within our business, and that business is not just limited to the expertise and knowledge of one person. So we can be very efficient, and economies of scale. We have the systems to be able to schedule and create content, and to create imagery, and we help with video production. We add on different services as needed, which are now enables our clients to be really agile. And we often pivot. They say, oh, we've got this event coming up. Can you quickly, do an Eventbrite page and design a flyer and send the email out and do the social posts? Sure, we'll do that in a day.
Yes.
And so, yeah, that plan is that tactical plan, but your strategy is really your vision in alignment with your business goals.
Clever. And I think going back to one of the things you mentioned before, which was around team, and again, just to add a few little bits of meat to the bone here, that firm in Melbourne in particular, one of the things we identified was, the type of client we wanted to chase. So let's call it the dental client, because we know the dental practice earning good money. The individual owner was also earning good money. So self-managed super funds was a part of the, let's call it the strategy, which was a part of the plan. But we said, well, let's chase a client that is a $7,000 client, as an example, or a $10,000 client with a company, a trust, a self-managed super fund attached to it. So therefore, but we also then worked out the team, as you mentioned before, Emma, team capacity, because they also, as you mentioned, team members are hard to find. So they also built in a strategy into that was, right, if we can get the self-managed super fund, as an example, outsourced, that's a fixed cost of, at its highest, maybe $1,500, but we can charge $4,500, or bang, we know what our profit margins are. So we brought it down to that element as well. So we're really clear on what our outgoings were, what we were going to charge for it, and what the profit margin was on each of those jobs, to then enable us to grow the top line as well as the bottom line.
Yes.
Let's talk about brand consistency. Understanding, why brand consistency is important and its significance. Are you okay to go into a little bit of detail about that?
Yeah, sure. So with your brand, people think brand, they think logo, logo name, colors, fonts, maybe, but it does go much, much deeper than that. And it is everything from your tone of voice. And look, I get some emails and the font is just so big, or it's so small, and it seems really aggressive, or it's overwhelming. So you want to look at your brand and your branding across a multitude of kind of different things. Brand consistency is basically how you show up online and offline, and having a consistent look and feel of your brand helps enable trust and recognition. It also increases the value of your brand, and it also inspires your employees to, be an advocate of your brand too. So simple things like merchandise for your team and your clients. I mentioned to you before, Paul, that we bought some merchandise for our clients, and it took me about 3 months to decide what type of water bottle we wanted, because we are a marketing agency, and so if we deliver subpar marketing merchandise, then that is a direct reflection of our brand.
Yeah.
And so for us, we work with our clients to ensure brand consistency across, the different fonts and colors, imagery, on their website as well. So a lot of accounting firms, because they're restricted from whatever reason, use a lot of stock photos. So that's one really simple thing that you could do is actually getting a photographer into your business and maybe a videographer as well, and creating some really nice wide angle shots of your boardrooms and your team. And that creates that personal approach. And that is more representative of your brand than something from, Adobe stock photos.
Yeah.
So consistency as well, yes, in your tone of voice. So say a financial planning client of ours, we probably don't use as many emojis as maybe a livelier brand. It just wouldn't be representative of their brand. Their tone of voice is around being confident, being informational, being authoritative, educational. It's not about being quirky, fun, and I don't know, provocative. Like, that's not their brand, and that's not their tone of voice. And so little things like that show consistency. Posting on the same day of the week. The times do change, so you want to obviously post at the times that are most effective.
Yep.
But just if you're starting from doing nothing, or starting from like doing really little, just start with being consistent and just pick a day of the week you're going to put a post out and be accountable to doing that. And that's even just a good first step.
Let me rephrase that. Are there better days of the week and times to post?
Yes, there are. Again, we have a cheat sheet we can probably send around. Analytics is important, and there's different tools that you can use to analyze this. In terms of what gets the best, just I guess in terms of what gets the best engagement, multiple photos. So if you add more than one photo, you get 3 times the amount of engagement. If you put video content up, you get 5 times the amount of engagement. I also find the best performing posts for our accounting clients are to do with their team or their clients or their culture. So anniversary posts, team celebrations, new starters, client visits, far better than any article, any webinar, any blog, hands down. But you don't want to post about that all the time. And if we just posted consistently that we're just recruiting, they would think, oh, why are they recruiting so much? So you don't want to put too much repetitive content out. You want to have a diverse range of content you're posting so that you create this well-rounded overview of what your business is doing and what your business has been up to.
Okay. So what other branding tips could you provide to everybody?
Branding tips. Do an audit of your brand. Have brand guidelines. They are really important and really helpful, especially if you're doing marketing with maybe some events. Like if you're sponsoring expos, if you're attending events, if you provide the organizer with your brand guidelines, it really ensures consistency with the colors and the fonts and the use of your logo. So I would definitely have some brand guidelines. Other tips would be just really like review your website content. And review, potentially you've got some, staff members on there that don't work for your business anymore. And have a look at, LinkedIn profiles. It's a tricky one because your employee's LinkedIn page is their personal page. And so you can't, well, actually there are some companies that are creating a social media policy within their contracts, controversial, subject to their own views. But you can definitely help your employees, creating some workshops, creating some guidelines, providing a cover photo. So if all your clients, all your employees have the same cover photo, that really ensures that consistency of your brand and also helps, just creating more awareness.
Yep. And it's a funny thing, because we're here to talk about the power of branding, but to give you a bit of an idea, I did some, and I know we did a teaser video as well last week or the week before, whenever it was, but I did some teaser videos with some other businesses only last week. And we chose to re-record them because no one used what you're using right now, which is a background, as an example, a virtual background. So if we are moving towards this sort of Zoom, or whether it's Teams, or whether it's, I don't even know if anyone uses, what's the old one that we used to use? WebEx, is it WebEx?
Oh yeah.
I know schools use WebEx, but most of us have gone to Zoom, certainly since COVID, and we're finding it's a lot more accepting as well. But guys, use a background. I know I haven't got any logos behind me, but sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But one of the things that I decided to do was, if you're recording things like this, find a virtual background, find something where you can put your logo on it. Exactly what Emma's done there, because it's about building brand. You want people to see your brand, even if it's subtle. But you look at what's around us, and so I did that with all of the 4 companies I did some stuff with last week. Just really simple, because I want them to put their brand out there. And it's actually for the Profit Master Global Outsourcing Conference that we've got happening in September. But it was just subtle little things that, help them to put their brand out there. And I think that's so important.
Something you've just made me think of. Can I give an example of something not done well, then could also be leveraged? Your email signature. Probably review it and have a look at how your staff are using it. There are ways to systemize that to make sure that everyone's signatures are the same. There's a lot of companies that do struggle with ensuring that consistency with staff, and maybe it's the logo that isn't feeding through correctly, or they don't have their title on there, or they don't want to have a phone number, which is fine. Your logo is that first communication if they're getting it via email. And then so that consistency across the staff members. You can also leverage it to have potentially some banners and some awards. Maybe you want to have a link in there to meet with me on Teams and meet with me on Zoom. Sometimes we help our staff, employers to put, like, not out of office, but what days they work. So to help with the communication to their clients, so they don't email Tracy on a Tuesday. They know Tracy only works Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yes.
And so your signature is actually a really important element of your brand, and it's something that can sometimes not be controlled very easily when you are scaling. Oh, here, Jenny, here, copy paste this into your signature, and she hasn't quite done it right, and the font's a bit different. And so, yeah, looking at what I've said before, your fonts and your logos and your colors, and looking at where your logo is used and if it's used in a consistent way, especially when it's employees, and it does get a bit challenging at scale.
Yeah, it's a really good point, because sometimes if you leave it up to your employees to choose the font, they'll choose the font that they want to use. So maybe the company font is, I don't know, I'm trying to think of fonts now, Verdana, and someone goes, oh no, I don't really like Verdana, I'm going to use Arial. So no, well, the company font is Verdana, 10 point. So that's all in terms of just that consistency that's coming through, isn't it? Yep. Let's get into, again, we spoke about before, 10 days to the end of the financial year, and what are some of the, let's call it, marketing fundamentals for the new financial year that you can share?
Yeah, so we are very close to end of financial year, and so we're planning with our clients at the moment of what really is that plan for them over the next 6 to 12 months. One of our clients is looking to rebrand, so we are shifting away from the BAU content. We can still put up content because they want to still maintain a presence. All that work that they've done, all that momentum that we've done, we want to still maintain that to an extent, but we're going to be shifting our focus to looking at their rebrand and looking at the identity of their business, and then helping them transition that into a new website. Other firms are working with, one of them just moved into their 6th year. They actually really need a lot of support around recruitment and demonstrating to prospective recruits who they are, what they do, what the values are of working there. Some other firms, it's just content and planning content around particular events. There's been a lot of events. We've been a very, very busy first 6 months of the year, and so you don't have to go to every event, but look at events that you can potentially send your staff to, being an advocate of your brand, and looking at if it's an upcoming event. Do you want your brand to sponsor that event? Do you just want to be in attendance of that event? Is it online? Is it offline? So being really selective around the upcoming activities, and then looking at the content you want to develop around that. So yeah, it's really that tactical plan. So if you have your strategy, or if you haven't, do the work on your strategy around your audience, who you're trying to target, what are the overall objectives for your business, and then move into some of that tactical planning. Post something on LinkedIn once a week if you have a LinkedIn page, or if you don't have a page, then invest that time elsewhere. There's a lot of noise when it comes to marketing, and there's a lot of things that you can do, but if it's not done well, it's going to be a detriment to your brand. So do things well, and do things that are going to be of value to your customers, but in alignment with your strategy.
Yeah, clever. And I think what sort of springs to my mind as you were saying all that just then is the rebrand whether you want to do it or not, but sometimes a rebrand is an opportunity to, it's content. You might get everyone around, sort of the board table or on a whiteboard, or it's just always think about, if you're going through that, it's just content. And at the end of the day, yeah, you've got the ability for a fresh new look, whether it's fresh colors or whether it's the oranges and the blues, and that grabs people's attention, but you've got a story. And I think that's the great thing that you mentioned before as well. Everything we're doing, certainly from a social point of view now, is building those stories, because people like stories.
Yes. And it's the subtleness of that. So we actually had an auditing client we've been working with pretty much since the beginning. And at the end of last year, they won a lot of awards, because we started pushing for them to, attend these awards, get their team to them. And then it just took off. And it was like every week they were attending an award ceremony, or they were winning. And so it was being really creative around what the narrative was with that. If we just posted, oh, winning awards, it would work in the opposite effect. It would question the credibility and the trust associated with that business. And why are they talking about all these awards they're winning? And so we had to talk about it in a way that was, in the tone of the brand and alignment with who the brand is. But we're really subtle in those stories of, we're really proud to be sponsoring this award from this local community, which they were part of, in the Wagga Riverina, council area. So you're talking about, you're supporting local community, you're reminding clients of the areas that you're operating in. So we use these as an opportunity to tell the story of the brand. Same as, say, a new recruit post. So you hire someone new into your business. You don't want to just say, welcome, Johnny, and then welcome, Sam, and then welcome, whoever it is. You actually want to create a story. If you've got 5 people you hire in that month, you probably don't want to do 5 separate posts. Yep. So you might want to put up a post saying, really excited to be onboarding these new individuals, tag them all, make them feel part of your community, and note down, the experience and the skills that they have. Johnny's been working for 5 years. He's actually been working at, you probably don't want to mention if he's been at PwC, but, he's been somewhere else, and, we're really excited that he's now been working for our firm. Or, so whatever the narrative is,
yes,
really important to shine through. So just putting a post up doesn't have the value anymore. It's actually thinking through, what is the story, even if it's just one post. Yep. And then, because that story stitches together and that builds the narrative.
I agree. Given time, I might come back to PwC from a brand point of view, how much that may affect the brand from your point of view. So given time, we might come back to that. But there's so much here. And I think one of the key things you also mentioned there was about team members, because if you think about how we operate nowadays, it's an interesting thing since these things came out, because our phones, they're always on us. So therefore, very rarely do we have our computers on us, but we're always got our phones on us. So if someone talks to you about something, the first thing you do is go to Google. And check out that business, or you check out that person by going to LinkedIn. So you're right, whether that's a new employee or a potential new client or whoever, they'll always go and look at that. And if you haven't got good images, again, think about what you like. Most of us, we buy with our eyes. Okay, you go to a restaurant, and again, we eat with our eyes. And if it looks good, we're going to go on. You always look at the person next to you and go, that looks pretty good, I want that. So it's no different to what Emma's saying. You're actually getting all of those little fundamentals as a part of your plan, let's say, whether you're looking to rebrand or just freshen up, it doesn't matter. But this is the opportunity that you've got to look at all of that, which is really important. Yeah.
And it's just in those kind of key areas that you said, the website is the digital shopfront. And so if you are embarrassed by your website, I just put under maintenance and let's just assess that. Look, there are some little things that you can do. There's some tools that you can use as well to look at the effectiveness of the website and the authority of your website and the page speed. If you've got a video playing and it's not been correctly put onto your website, it could be dramatically bringing down the speed of your website. Now I know what you're going to say. I don't have a lot of traffic come through our website. We've never had anyone submit the apply now button or the call us button, but you still have traffic to your website. So people are still eyes on your brand. It is still part of the brand that they are seeing, and it's still part of that initial awareness piece. And you only really get one shot at building, a really solid impression of your brand from the get-go.
So true. Let's delve into, we spoke about a little bit before, increasing customer value.
Yes.
So what does customer value mean? And can you give us examples or even a case study of how you're doing this with other accounting firms to include that into their marketing plan?
Well, the accounting firms that we work with are evolving, and they're wanting to, there's a lot of alignment with, they're wanting to grow, they're wanting to bring on more clients, wanting to add value to their existing clients. And so us as a business, we really align on that. And we want to help them communicate that to their clients. And so one example is, as an accounting firm, they've just implemented like SMS notifications and alerts around, when different lodgements are due, or different updates, or if there's a file that they need to review, they get a notification for that. And so again, there's this message around, well, why are you putting this new software in? Was something broken? Were you not delivering the service before? Are you being ahead of the market and you're really investing this money back into the business to retain customers, and or maybe it's part of an upsell. You want customers to take on these additional products that you're offering, or to have, additional meetings. And a financial year, there's obviously a lot of consultation that needs to happen, a lot of prep. So how are you communicating? Is that additional value you're offering? Is that part of their, the current payments that they're paying you? So creating some communications around that, and speaking to the value that you're adding to them, but then also why you're doing it and what's the impact.
Yep. Yeah, and that value aspect is so important nowadays, because I've always believed that people, or let's call it customers, clients of ours, will only they'll only bring up the cost if there's no value associated to it. So if you just get a bill for $4,000 and you haven't explained the value to your customer, and they just get an invoice for $4,000, I know mentally, the first thing I'll go is, what was that for? So you've got to, and not just put it in line items in the invoice, which is what a lot of accounting firms used to do. We've got to get better at explaining to clients that this is the value proposition that you bring to the table. And maybe it is the fact that we've saved them X amount of money, or we've reduced down the taxable, or the tax they've got to pay, whatever it may be. It was $20,000, now it's $5,000. They can see the value in that. And I suppose there's some of the key things as well, that sometimes we're too busy and we don't explain that properly.
Yeah, it's a really good point, and it's something I've heard multiple times. Of, one example was an accounting firm. They were selling, this business that they were helping was selling bottled water, and they just implemented like a water fountain, and they saved them like 10 grand for the year on water, which is a significant saving. Another one, they've helped their clients submit for R&D government grants, and they've got them an additional $100,000, or an excessive amount that you just can't put a price on that value. And so it is about communicating that to them. One thing that you could do is even do a bit of a health check with some of your clients, or do a survey. It's a really nice way to create that touch point. You might want to deliver it over a consultation, or you might want to send out a document, or have a look at how you want to capture that information. You might want to ask them questions about, when was the last time, they refinanced their home loan? Can you offer additional services and value to that client by the position that you have helping them? Do they need help with their estate planning? What is the value that your client's looking for? And you often don't know that unless you ask, or unless you promote that content. They go, oh yeah, I do need help with that. I forgot that you can help me. So consistency front of mind, and there's some sort of key messages there around what you offer and the impact of being able to offer that for your clients.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I'll say this with respect, that it's important that you're not just head down on the tools, because in order to do that, you need to create the capacity to have those meetings, to have those touch points. And then we're not saying every single one needs to be with a cup of coffee out at their businesses. If you can, fantastic. I was always a massive advocate of making sure, find out what sort of coffee your client likes, and just say, look, I'm in the area, might thought I'd pop in, thought I'll bring you a coffee. And then have a quick chat to them if they're there. But nowadays we've got the ability to use things like Zoom to still achieve the same results. And seeing someone face to face, obviously you can save a lot of time in driving nowadays. Sort of, I know you're in Sydney, but in Melbourne, every second turn there's roadworks. So you're always going to allow a lot more time. But those little things are just so invaluable, and your customers, your clients will love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do
you think anyone has a Q&A? Do you think anyone has a question? I've really got a couple.
Brett said thank you, so thank you, Brett.
Does anyone have a question about like a current challenge they have with their marketing, or a question around LinkedIn or content or something happening within their firm?
Please drop it into the Q&A, drop it into the chat. We'd love to hear anything that you're going through. Oh, here comes one. Ideas for USP. Oh, Brett's on the money here. I'll let you explain what a USP is, because it is very, 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 very important.
Sure. So USP is your unique selling proposition. And it does tie into your values, and values these days extend more than just we're trustworthy or we're approachable. There's actually, so On Deck, who I used to work for, if you go onto their website and About Us, they actually do their values very well. And they have some of the values are around, if I remember correctly, driven to win, switched on. And so they have a slightly different take. And so their point of difference is providing loans to businesses to help them support, the growth in their business. So they're, targeting a problem which is around the cash flow for small business. But the elements of their brand and the values of their brand speak to how they do things differently. And they are switched on, they are really savvy, they are innovative. And so for accounting firms, potentially your USP is around people, is around the technical ability of your advice, it's around the additional service offerings that you have. And so I would even have a session with your team and do some associations with, when you think about our brand, what are some of the first things that come to mind around, what we do differently compared to other firms? Yep. So one accounting firm we work with, they are above and beyond accessible. And if you call any of them, you'll get a response within like 3 hours. It's a really strong point of difference. It's a really strong, message for their clients and value add for their clients. So yeah, I definitely get your teams to help with this, because you want them to buy into, your brand and what you do. And what
I love about that is it's called buying. So by going to them and asking, or even going to your clients and asking, you're getting buy-in. And you're right, it can be as simple as, and I know this is one that I hear all the time from other customers, and they go, oh, PJ, you work with hundreds of accounting firms. Can you recommend one? I said, okay, well, tell me what you're not happy with. I'll email them and I don't hear from them for 2 weeks. I don't even know if they've got the email, and then I forget about it because I'm busy and I've got travel. And it's like, okay, so it could be just as simple as implementing what you said before, just a policy that we respond to you within 24 hours. Even if it's responding to say, guys, we're really busy, is it okay if I get back to you within 48 hours? Simple little things that you can do to make yourselves unique. But I agree with you. I'd go and ask the team, get buy-in, get client
But maybe they want 12 hours or 6 hours. So your USP should be based upon what your customers want and the expectation of your brand and your business.
No, it's very, very, very good. Now, given the fact of our time, before we look to wrap up, I want to close with, we've gone through a lot, and this is probably the fortunate or unfortunate thing. There's a lot of things that we can share within the hour. So what do you think that firms that are listening to this can take away? Are there, let's say, top three action items for the next 30 days as a takeaway?
Sure. Yeah. Look, these are not easy, but I would suggest starting all of these. The first one would be just reviewing your value proposition. So reviewing the identity of your brand and having a look at that across the different aspects of your social media or your website, the different collateral that you have, and note down some of the kind of key documents or channels and content that you need to change and update, and then set a meeting to talk about it internally, whether it be with directors or employees. So look at your value proposition, look at your brand story and the way that your brand's headed, and does it need to be refreshed? Now, part of that is then I would say audit your website. So it's just really simply, there are some tools online that you can look at the page speed of your website and have a look at the quality of your website. You can get a developer, or we can obviously help with all these things too. We can get a developer to come in and just fix up some of those 404 kind of errors, or have a look at, optimizations. And that's just base level. That is just improving the existing foundations that are there and making sure that it's not a detriment to your brand and your traffic. And the third thing would be around creating a content plan. And so look at some of the key events coming up within your business, whether that be anniversaries, team members starting, end of financial year events, events that you're attending, and look at creating some content around those events and be open-minded to the type of content to create. So if you have the capacity and the excitement within your business and maybe your employees to create video content and for them to be filmed on video, then that's a great type of content to create. Maybe it's talking about a graduate program. Maybe it's really involving your customers and doing testimonials. But have a look at some of those key milestones and work to develop a content plan. Even if it's a post a month, it's a plan.
Clever. And to give you a bit of an idea, I work closely with the financial planning group, and one of the things that they chose to do was to, again, profile. This is about branding and raising the profile. They chose to write a book. Now, there's a lot of people that have done this in the past. And again, it's about, it's very clever. So the way that he's done it is he's going to be publishing a book. I think it comes out in August this year. But then what we chose to do was we took each of those items and we created a podcast series. So
right.
Again, even little things like if you look at, to all of you guys listening, what do I use? Over the years, I've used an app called Anchor. Now, Anchor is owned by Spotify. It's free of charge. Guys, you can just, so you don't need to have the big setup with microphones. And I know, we see other things, or Zoom even, this is free. So use the ability, if you want to think outside the square a little bit, to whether it's, so what we did was we created we took the spine of all those chapters, and I created a little podcast series, 15-minute podcast series, fully branded, pushed out on socials, and that gets you going, So I think we created series 1, series 2. It was about obviously investments, but then, as you mentioned before, estate planning. Why would you have a self-managed super fund? A lot of the times we look to market the what, and I'll say this because it's a Simon Sinek. So those of you that don't know Simon Sinek and you've never seen Simon Sinek, go into YouTube and type up Simon Sinek. He talks about people market the what, but people buy the why.
Yes.
Okay, so we buy the why. Why do I have an Apple phone and an Apple watch and an Apple computer? And he gives a really good example about Apple and Dell. And it's an old one. It's probably 15 years old, but it's so relevant. It's so relevant. So there's so much online that everyone can get and go, right, what is our why? What are we selling? What's our why? And that's a really good starting point sometimes as well, even to get the team involved. So what's our why? Why do people buy? Not what we want, but why we're doing it. So It's interesting. There's a few things there we're going to leave you guys with. I know it's just clicked over to 104. Again, questions? Anyone got any questions?
We can send around I'll send to you some of those documents we mentioned. If anyone wants to have a separate chat with me and didn't want to put anything.
How do they find you?
Everywhere. Accelerate Marketing. I'll put a link in the email that we send out if you want to book a meeting with me and have a chat. I'm in the city, in Sydney. I'm down in Melbourne. I'm in Queensland as well. So thank you for being here today and joining us for the masterclass. Thank you, Paul, for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks, Emma. I appreciate everything you've shared, the knowledge, expertise, the little bits and pieces that everyone can take away. Look, the great part about these they are recorded. They will go on to our YouTube channel. So again, you think about what I'm doing here, the amount of times call it repurposing content. So I take from this show, we turn it into a podcast. That's my Empire CEO podcast series. Then I take this recorded session and I put it on our YouTube channel. Then I'll market out our PPE TV Plus YouTube channel. Just from one piece of content, you can get quite a lot. You can take snippets out of all of this, which Emma spoke about before. So it's all just thinking outside the square to what you can start doing for the new financial year to attract your type of client. So we will leave you with that. Any final comments, Emma, from you before we wrap up?
Just those 3 things. Look at your values. So look at your why, start with your USP, revisit it never hurts. look at where it is on your website, the collateral that you have, your email signatures of your employees. And then the third one is create a plan. Start putting some content out there that's of value and have a look at some of those key events coming up over the next 6 months.
Well done. Thank you. To all you guys online that are still online, my next show, it is on July 20. So my next masterclass, we're talking about leadership at the highest level. And I've managed to get Cameron Swab as my guest. Now, I don't know if you guys, if you're Melbourne people, you may know the Swab family. They've been pretty big in AFL world. And Cameron was a CEO of a couple of football clubs, Richmond, Melbourne, very successful now, obviously Melbourne and Richmond. So we're going to be talking about leadership at the highest level and what you need to do and what your team needs to do to perform at that level. It's going to be an awesome show. Emma, thank you again. Enjoy the rest of your week, everybody. I'm heading to Thailand on Friday, so I'll promise you I'll enjoy the rest of my week from there on.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Getting some warmer weather. Signing off until I see you next time. Thanks, Emma. Talk soon. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.